Are they in position to keep their big three together this time?
They are. They've got all 15 players under contract. They're likely going to lock up Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. 4 potential first-round picks next year. Flexibility of how they've staggered their contracts. Yes, I would say if there's a team that can defeat the apron, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oklahoma City versus the apron. It'll be a fun show. Tim McMahon, should Nikola Jokic be happy with what Denver's done so far?
Absolutely. Look, after they lost Game 7 in Oklahoma City, Joker stated the obvious. Denver needed more depth. They've done that. Jonas Valanciunas, the best backup of the Joker era. Bruce Brown, you know that's a championship piece off the bench. We've seen that. Tim Hardaway Jr., a veteran shooter. This is the best bench in the Joker era. He should absolutely be happy with that.
Brian Windhorst, the Milwaukee Bucks really shook things up yesterday. They agreed to a deal with Miles Turner. They waived Damian Lillard. What do you think of all this that Milwaukee's up to?
It's very hard to stun the whole NBA. This stunned the whole NBA. Not so much because they were able to go out and get this piece, this new franchise center, but because of what they did to afford it, which was waive Dame Lillard and eat the final $113 million on his contract, which they will pay out in $22.5 million payments over the next 5 years on their cap. It is totally a robbing Peter to pay Paul extreme situation.
So it's a move they're making, presumably, Wendy, to maximize a window they have with Giannis Antetokounmpo. But why is it, you say robbing Peter to pay Paul? That's a bad thing. What is it about this move that's kind of irresponsible?
I don't even think that's accurate. I think it's robbing Peter's 401k to pay Paul's loan shark bill, if you want my honest assessment of it. So because they have, look, at the end of the day, they have already exhausted all of their draft picks. They have exhausted all of their salary cap space. So now they are borrowing from 5 years from now salary cap space. And the acquisition of Miles Turner, it's very strong. Like, we did not see this coming. The league didn't see it coming. The Indiana Pacers really didn't see it coming. But Miles Turner is not a transformational piece to the Bucks. He is an upgrade on Brook Lopez, who would slow down over the last couple of years. He will defend the rim. He will spread the floor for Giannis. It's a really nice pickup. But the Bucks are still, with this move, in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is the junior conference to the West. If you were ranking the teams with a chance to win the championship, they're not in the top 10. And they now have a problem at long-term point guard that they cannot fix, and they have $23 million less on their books to be able to do it over the next few years. It is a stunning move, a jaw-dropping move, but not necessarily a move that if I were Giannis, I would say, I'm home free. I ain't ever thinking about leaving Milwaukee.
Bontemps, what are you hearing around the league after these stunning jaw-dropping moves by Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think Brian summed it up very well. In the current odds, the Bucks have the 8th best odds to win the East, let alone the 8th best odds to win the title. So they are very far away from being another championship-level team, which Giannis Antetokounmpo has said he wants to win multiple championships in his career, and so far he's won one. And if you look at this situation overall, I was talking to an executive yesterday about how this went, and they said this is exactly the kind of thing you'd come up with if you're sitting in a boardroom in July trying to figure out a way to dig yourself out of the hole you're in. But a couple of years from now, you're going to look back on it and say, what were we doing? And when you look at the amount of money that's on the Bucks books long term, this is the kind of move you make when you don't have another place to turn to try to have this team be as good as you can with Giannis Antetokounmpo on. And as Brian said, yes, Miles Turner is a nice piece. He is a rim-protecting, three-point shooting big. There are very few of them in the league. However, there is a $54 million hole on this team in the form of Damian Lillard, who was there last year, is no longer there. The Bucks do not have a replacement for him and do not have a way to replace him. And they were only the 5th best team in the East last year. So there is a lot of work to be done if the Bucks want to get anywhere near the place they hope to be, which is the top of the East and potentially a championship-level team.
Yeah, Tim McMahon, Lillard was their big go-for-it move just 2 years ago. Now he's gone. It seems like the plan is changing all the time in Milwaukee. What did yesterday tell you about the state of the Bucks right now?
Yeah, it's an admission that the Damian Lillard trade was a complete disaster. And there's obviously massive misfortune here with his torn Achilles, but this was an all-in massive swing that didn't produce a single playoff series win. And, you talk about the credit card bill, they're still paying off for the Drew Holiday trade. And then they flip Drew Holiday into Damian Lillard. They still owe picks on Lillard, plus all this salary moving forward for the next 5 years. Damian Lillard was supposed to be the transformational piece for the Milwaukee Bucks, and now he is a financial albatross for them moving forward.
Yeah, Bobby, a lot of people listening can relate to the concept, certainly, of credit card debt, but as it pertains to an NBA front office, can you take us through a little bit of what the Bucks are confronting here in terms of the financials over the next few years?
Yeah, so they took the $113 million of that Damian Lillard contract and waived it over 5 years. It's a $22.5 million cap hit. And when you look at how you're building rosters, we usually do it in a 3-year window as far as projecting long term. I think when you have a generational player like Giannis on your roster, you're almost in a 1-year window. You're almost year to year how you're going to build the roster. This was their only get out of jail free card. If Damian Lillard doesn't get hurt in that Indiana series, we're not talking about this right now because he's still on the roster and they're still trying to figure out how they can add to their roster with limited means here. This was the way to go out and get a center, but then it leaves you a void at point guard here. That's going to be the biggest question moving forward. Did this roster get better? Did it stay stagnant? Or did it get worse?
So presumably a lot of what they're doing is to try and convince Giannis to stay long term. Tim McMahon, it feels like that's been the story of Milwaukee to Giannis. They have done enough to convince him to stick around long term.
The Drew Holiday trade got Giannis to commit long term. Then the Damian Lillard trade got him to commit long term. At this point, I don't know if the question is what do they have to do to keep Giannis happy. I think it's how bleak do things have to get for Giannis to look to leave. If he was looking for reasons to leave, they're there. I mean, they haven't had recent playoff success. They've been getting bounced in the first round. If he was eager to get out of Milwaukee, he'd be at the door pounding on it right now. So I don't know the answer. But again, I don't think it's about making Giannis happy. I think it's just they're in a state where they're trying to maximize their chances to win each season with Giannis at the expense of the long term.
Are they doing that? Are they a real contender right now?
No, they're not a real contender. But if the question is, have you convinced Giannis to stay? It's like McMahon said. I think that Giannis is looking for reasons to stay in Milwaukee. If he wanted to leave, he would have made noise about wanting to leave by now. There would have been plenty of reasons to. They lost 3 years in a row in the first round. They are not a team that looks like they're a championship-level team. It's also totally understandable and reasonable if he says, hey, I've won a championship in Milwaukee. I want to spend my career with one team. I mean, we've seen Dirk Nowitzki do that. Steph Curry's on his way to doing that. Tim Duncan did that. Kobe Bryant did that. That's, a lot of the all-time great players have done that. But it's a matter of whether he wants to win multiple championships. It's hard to see how that happens with the Bucks.
Wendy, final word on the Pacers end of this, please. 10 days ago, they're in Game 7 of the Finals. Now they lose Miles Turner. What's going on in Indiana?
Let me just say one more thing about Giannis.
Sure.
I was in Cleveland in 2010, okay? I understand the desperation of a franchise that is worried about losing a star player. If this method was available to the Cavs in 2010, they might have waived 2 players and still been paying off those if they thought they could have kept LeBron James for